Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our PolitcGal segment, brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we're featuring Kim Iversen. She's a highly popular radio and TV personality and host of The Kim Iversen Show, where she gives her independent analysis of today's politics, foreign policy, pandemic, elections, and oh, so much more. She has a no filter and no BS approach to commentary and is paving the tone for independent thinkers across America. She joins me today to help me make sense of the Mar-A-Lago fiasco. What's next for Donald Trump and her opinion on the Hunter Biden ordeal, also playing out in real time, but overshadowed by the obvious. Can't wait to hear her take. Now, as we know it, the FBI seized 11 sets of classified documents, including some that were marked as top secret from Trump's home. And the documents seized in the raid may have included records covered by attorney-client privilege and potentially executive privilege. Now, that's going to be an important facet. We know now what potential offenses the Justice Department listed on the Mar-a-Lago search warrant, which is removing or destroying government records, obstructing justice, and violating the Espionage Act. But we still don't know exactly what former President Donald Trump did. Was he looking to profit from our nuclear secrets? Or was it just the latest instance of his defiance of legal rules? Or is this a plain old witch hunt aimed to cripple Trump for 2024? Well, the difference matters. If Trump or anyone else was aiming to seriously damage our national security, there's little reason for the government to go easy on them. But what if the underlying conduct just involves negligent mishandling of the materials? Will a prosecution go forward? The warrant also revealed Trump to be under investigation for possible violations of the Espionage Act, which dates from 1917 and has been used to go after whistleblowers. Kind of extreme. Now, if charged and convicted, Trump could face up to 20 years in federal prison or even be barred from running for office. And here to chat some more and break it all down is the beautiful Kim Iversen. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's dive right in. So, Kim, it remains both unclear what exactly was being looked for and unclear what was even found. And in theory, a federal judge would have approved the raid because there was probable cause of a federal crime. But at any rate, you don't search a once and possibly future president without wanting to make a point. And you probably don't search for missing boxes. It all seems pretty likely that presidents walk out with unintended boxes. Former presidents move the same way, most of us do in life. And even various concerned liberals urged the DOJ to explain itself. What was this raid really about?
Well, I mean, it's looking increasingly political, bottom line. Of course, we all kind of reserved judgment to wait and see what they would come up with. We reserved judgment to find out what were they really truly looking for. I mean, wanting to give in good faith the benefit of the doubt to the FBI and to Merrick Garland. But rather than coming out and saying the president of the United States was, we found XYZ documents and they're extreme sensitive government secrets that he was intending. We don't know what his intentions were, but he was holding these government secrets and it's extremely grave. And now we're charging him with a crime. Rather than doing that only a few days after the raid, if you remember, they raided on a Monday, and I believe it was a Thursday. They waited several days before Merrick Garland comes out, makes a statement. And I think all of us were holding our breath thinking, are they going to announce charges of some kind? But no, rather than announcing charges, which you would think you would do after an unprecedented raid on a U.S. president, he instead says, we're going to release the search warrant. And then hours later, a leak goes to the Washington Post. Of course, the FBI leaks everything. They have a history. So all of us were waiting for, where's the FBI leak? We knew it was coming. And then the FBI, of course, leaks to the Washington Post that it was nuclear secrets or nuclear weapons. Documents pertaining to nuclear weapons was the actual term that they used. We don't even know what that means. I mean, was it a handwritten note, a napkin between himself and, let's say, the French president? And one of them mentioned, but it was during a meeting that had to do with nuclear talks. And so therefore it's tied to that. We don't even know to what level these documents pertain to any of that.
You're 100% correct. We don't know. It's still kind of, a gray area. But to be clear, this search, on the face of it, represented a relatively unimportant scuffle, really, between a minor government agency, which is the National Archives, trying to enforce a point of principle, and the Trump team in Florida, likely more disorganized, in my opinion, than really just unwilling to cooperate here. But here's my question. Does Attorney General Merrick Garland know that he is investigating the man most likely to be the opponent of the president he serves? Does he realize that the intense political pressure campaign that he's under to indict that man has been plainly visible to now, well, everyone? Does he care? If we can't know where Garland is ultimately heading in this probe of January 6th and the documents seized from Mar-a-Lago, Kim, all indications are that he is preparing the grounds for an indictment of Donald Trump. What do you say to this?
Yeah, it's definitely, absolutely Trump is most likely to be the Republican opponent to Joe Biden in 2024. And but that fact hasn't stopped Democrats this entire, while he was president, since he's left office, he hasn't been in office in over a year and a half. And that hasn't stopped them from continuing to go after him. They are dead set on him being a criminal, and they have looked and they have overturned every single rock looking for a way to pin him as a criminal. And the things that they end up coming up with are things that others in the past, not that it's right, we shouldn't excuse it, but obstruction of justice, for example, or perjury are things that there's a long list of political people, including Bill Clinton, who've been accused of these crimes.
Oh, yeah. Government officials, to your point, have been accused in the past of mishandling classified information, including David Petraeus, who's a CIA director during the Obama administration, Samuel Sandy Berger, a national security advisor during the Clinton administration, and both eventually pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges for unlawfully removing secret documents.
Right.
And in 2016, we watched Hillary Clinton's email scandal unfold, and she got away with all of that. But it feels like Trump is in much, much more trouble. And the question is, why?
Yeah, and what was interesting, the parallels between the emails and these boxes that apparently were demanded by the National Archives. And again, this is, we don't really know what was in. It sounds like mementos. It sounds like Trump was keeping mementos. Maybe he was thinking he was going to put it in. When is he getting his presidential library? I don't know. Where is it going to be? Was he keeping it for those purposes? Did he think he had some sort of claim or right to them? He certainly had the claim or the right to classify or declassify. That is what the president does. That's the sole that classification and declassification is under the realm of the president. Other people do it, but they do it with the power given to them by the U.S. president. So, the whole thing, it does sound like the National Archives wanted some things back. Trump didn't want to give them those things back. They were probably personal mementos of his. He didn't want to give them up. They scuffled about that, and they ultimately sent in, the FBI to go and retrieve these boxes. This wasn't the FBI or the CIA or the Department of Defense asking for these documents back. It sounds like it was the archives asking.
Right.
Archives.
Archives.
That's not.
and when you talk about executive privilege, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, just to be fair, because some would argue that anything that falls under executive privilege doesn't belong to Trump, and it's still government property and belongs in the archives. Hard to think of an example where really executive privilege would apply to a document that was not also covered under the Presidential Records Act, which requires all of Trump's records, factually,
Right.
from the White House to be preserved, which means all such documents belong to the National Archives and can't legally be held by Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So on the flip side, sure, that's like a big technicality. But to your point, presidents, when leaving the White House, are just like everybody else. They take boxes, they take things. There's probably, many, many boxes that are left unlabeled, and there's a lot of disorganization. So I think this was a big stretch, a big reach. And the only thing that this does, Kim, is really kind of put Donald Trump, if you think this fiasco has drained the oxygen from those hoping to nudge the party on from Trump and has led the Republicans to rally around him again. And the Republicans who aren't hardcore supporters have also backed him in the past, but criminal charges arising from this are likely to confirm Trump's claims about the deep state and a witch hunt and all of the stuff that he's been out there saying is happening to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are plenty of people out there. I'm seeing the trend on social media, people saying, I hate Trump. I never supported the guy, but I will think about voting him for him in 2024. And we're seeing that sentiment over and over and over again. They're saying if the government hates him this much, if they're all willing to go after him this much, then there must be something he presents to them that is dangerous as an individual. And that is maybe breaking up the deep state, draining the swamp like he said he would do. I don't know, maybe next time if he got in office, he actually would do it. And that's the bet a lot of Americans are now willing to take, Americans that otherwise would not have voted for him in 2024.
Yeah, it's true, and it's interesting, but he has to announce really a campaign for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024 in the next couple of weeks, according to a senior source close to Trump. Because if Trump wants to head off being indicted under the Espionage Act after the FBI search, the golden question is he's going to have to announce this sooner versus later, because that's going to play into the bigger picture. But I have 3 minutes left, and I want to get your take on the Hunter Biden fiasco that's also unfolding, but it's clearly being overshadowed here. We know that Hunter Biden has been under federal investigation since 2018. And according to a source familiar with the matter, the investigation is being conducted by Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss. He's a prosecutor appointed by the former president Donald Trump. Okay. So Justice departments are looking into whether to charge Hunter Biden with various tax violations, but more seriously, Kim, possible foreign lobbying violations. And the federal investigation into Hunter Biden was predicated in part by suspicious activity reports regarding suspicious foreign transactions. But when asked about his son's dealings, President Joe Biden claims he remains unaware and uninvolved. Is President Joe Biden lying? What's your take on this?
Yes, absolutely lying. Hunter Biden could not have made those connections without the help of his father. Bottom line, I don't have connections like that. Do you? I mean, how can I go and suddenly make some sort of multi-million-dollar deal with companies in Ukraine or China? Average people do not have connections like that. Hunter Biden, the only way somebody with, especially Hunter Biden's past, for him to be able to make these sorts of connections to give him multi-million-dollar paychecks, that was the help of his father. Either his father facilitated those deals or met, did the introductions. Somewhere along the line, his father was absolutely involved in the makings of those deals. But more likely and more importantly, and what they should be looking for is, did Joe Biden do more than just make an introduction? Did he actually help facilitate the deals by making some sort of silent guarantees or, off the books, off the record guarantees that allowed his son to make these sorts of deals, sitting on boards of companies that he had no business being on? So absolutely, his father is involved somehow. They do need to be making some sort of, they need to be investigating that. This does not stop with just Hunter Biden is the criminal son. I'm sorry, that would be the case if it were different types of crimes. His drug use, that's one thing. But his dealings with foreign countries and companies within those countries, that is connected to his dad somehow. And I don't think any of us are dumb enough to think, oh no, Hunter somehow got all those connections on his own.
Oh no, definitely. I don't think he's clever enough to do that on his own. Sorry, Hunter, but your history speaks for itself. But yes, you're right. I do echo your sentiment that President Joe Biden is definitely covering something up, and he should be investigated for that. We are out of time, but I wanted to thank you for coming on. You are incredible. I love hearing from you, and I'll definitely have you back on again. Thank you for sharing your opinion with us. And more importantly, thank you for paving the way for independent thinkers. Guys, you definitely have to check out Kim Iversen. You have KimIversenShow.com. She's everywhere. Make sure that at the end of the day, you are thinking for yourself. Make no mistake, mishandling classified documents, particularly ones with allegedly sensitive details, shouldn't be at all acceptable. No president gets to just flint confidential national security files after he loses. But these are not ordinary times. It is not only the Justice Department, but also the president who needs to move with extraordinary care and precise judgment if American democracy is to thrive once again. And right now, this is a major fiasco. Definitely not proud to be American, but hoping it all gets turned around after the 2024 elections. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.